The night Alina Brooks lost her home began like any other, and that was what made it cruel. Nothing in the air warned her. Nothing in the quiet house told her that by midnight, she would no longer belong there. She returned from the gallery with tired feet and paint still faintly on her fingers, thinking about a small victory. Her manager had praised her layout for the new exhibit. It was not a big thing, but for Alina, small praise felt like sunlight. She carried it carefully inside her chest as she stepped through the front door of the Carter house, the only home she had known since she was 8 years old. The house was unusually silent. No television. No soft music from Mrs. Carter's kitchen radio. Even the grandfather clock in the hallway seemed louder than usual. Alina paused, sensing something off, but she brushed the thought away. She had learned long ago not to assume warmth in that house, but she had also learned to survive its coldness. Alina. Come here. Mr. Carter's voice came from the living room. It was calm, too calm. She placed her bag by the stairs and walked in. The lights were bright, almost harsh. Vanessa sat on the sofa, her posture perfect, her eyes red as if she had been crying. Mrs. Carter stood near the fireplace, arms folded tightly across her chest. On the glass coffee table lay a diamond bracelet, sparkling under the light. Alina recognized it instantly. It belonged to Mrs. Carter. She had seen her wear it at formal dinners and charity events. What happened? Alina asked softly, her heart beginning to beat faster. Mr. Carter looked at her as if searching for something in her face. Vanessa says she found this in your drawer. The words did not make sense at first. They floated in the air like a foreign language. In my drawer, she repeated. Vanessa let out a shaky breath. I didn't want to believe it either, Dad. But I saw it with my own eyes. Alina stared at her foster sister. Vanessa's expression was fragile, almost wounded. It was convincing. Too convincing. I didn't take it, Alina said immediately. Her voice was steady, but her palms were cold. Why would I? Mrs. Carter's eyes flashed. Money has been missing too. We didn't want to accuse you without proof. Alina's stomach dropped. Missing money? She knew nothing about that. She had been working extra shifts just to pay for her textbooks. She barely touched the small allowance they gave her. You think I stole from you? She whispered. Mr. Carter sighed, as if disappointed rather than angry. That hurt more. We don't want to think that. But the bracelet was in your room. It wasn't mine. I swear. Her eyes moved between them, searching for one soft expression, one sign that they knew her better than this. She had lived under their roof for 13 years. She had followed every rule, stayed quiet during arguments, helped with chores without being asked. She had never given them a reason to doubt her. Vanessa stood up suddenly. Stop pretending, she cried. You've always wanted what was mine. The accusation hit harder than the first one. Alina felt heat rise to her face. I never wanted anything from you. That's not true, Vanessa snapped. You wanted my parents. My life. The room seemed to tilt. Alina had never tried to take Vanessa's place. She had only tried to survive in the space allowed to her. Mrs. Carter stepped forward. We took you in when you had nothing. Is this how you repay us? The word repay sliced through her. Was love a debt she could never finish paying? I am grateful, Alina said, her voice breaking now. But I would never steal from you. Please check again. Ask anyone at the gallery. I was at work all day. That doesn't explain how it ended up in your drawer, Mr. Carter replied, because someone put it there, she wanted to say. Her eyes flicked to Vanessa, who looked away quickly. The silence grew heavy. No one defended her. No one asked if there could be another explanation. Finally, Mr. Carter straightened his shoulders. We can't have this in our home. Alina blinked. What does that mean? It means you need to leave. The words were simple, but they destroyed something inside her. Leave? Tonight, she asked. Mrs. Carter's expression did not change. We can't trust you anymore. Trust. The thing she had tried so hard to earn. Alina felt her chest tighten. Where am I supposed to go? You're an adult now, Vanessa said quietly. You'll figure it out. There was no anger in her voice anymore. Just satisfaction. Alina understood then. This was not about a bracelet. It was about years of silent competition she had never agreed to join. Vanessa had always felt threatened by her presence, even though Alina had tried to make herself small, invisible. I didn't do this, Alina said one last time, looking at Mr. Carter. His eyes shifted away. That was her answer. Pack your things, he said. Her legs felt numb as she walked upstairs. The hallway looked the same as it always had, family photos on the walls, polished floors, the faint scent of lavender from Mrs. Carter's candles. In one of those frames was a photo taken years ago, Vanessa in a bright dress, Alina beside her in something simple, both smiling at the camera. Looking at it now, Alina wondered if that smile had ever been real. Inside her small bedroom, she closed the door and finally let the tears fall. Not loud sobs. Just quiet tears sliding down her cheeks as she opened her closet. She packed quickly. Clothes. A few books. Her sketch pad. The old stuffed rabbit she had brought with her when she first arrived at the Carter house. She hesitated before placing it in the suitcase, embarrassed by how much it still meant to her. Every object felt heavier than it should. She remembered her first night in that room, a scared little girl trying not to cry too loudly. She had promised herself she would be good, so they would not regret taking her in. She had believed that if she behaved perfectly, she would be loved like a real daughter. Now she understood something painful: she had always been temporary. When she finished packing, she wiped her face and carried the suitcase downstairs. The family was still in the living room. No one looked surprised to see her ready. "Can I at least have a few days?" she asked softly. Mrs. Carter shook her head. "It's better this way." "Better for whom?" Alina walked to the door. Her hand trembled as she touched the handle. For a second, she wanted to turn around, to beg them to reconsider. But pride stopped her. She had already lost enough. She stepped outside. The evening air was cold, and dark clouds covered the sky. As if on cue, rain began to fall. First a light drizzle, then heavier drops soaking her hair and coat. Within minutes, the door closed behind her with a final click. Alina stood there, staring at the house. Lights glowed warmly inside. From the outside, it looked like a perfect family home. No one passing by would guess that someone had just been erased from it. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out, hoping for a message from Mr. Carter saying there had been a mistake. Instead, it was from Vanessa: "You should have known your place." The words blurred as fresh tears filled her eyes. Alina lowered herself onto the edge of the sidewalk, suitcase beside her. Cars passed, their headlights flashing briefly over her soaked figure. No one stopped. No one asked. She tried to think clearly. She had some savings, but not enough for long. A cheap motel maybe. A friend from university might let her stay for a few days. She hated the idea of explaining what happened. The shame felt heavier than the suitcase. More than anger, she felt something else: emptiness. She had believed that no matter how distant the Carters were, they would not abandon her without listening. She had believed years of quiet loyalty meant something, but one accusation had been enough to erase 13 years. Thunder rumbled in the distance. The rain grew stronger. Alina stood up slowly. Sitting there would not change anything. She pulled the suitcase handle and began walking down the street. Each step felt uncertain, but she forced herself forward. She did not look back again. Inside her chest, beneath the heartbreak and humiliation, something small and fragile remained. It was not hope exactly. It was survival. The same instinct that had carried her through losing her parents. The same quiet strength that had helped her endure being second best in someone else's home. She whispered to herself, "I didn't do this." And she would hold on to that truth, even if no one else did. The rain kept falling, washing away the last traces of the girl who once believed she had a family. By the time she reached the end of the street, she was no longer a daughter of the Carter house. She was alone, and she had no idea that this lonely walk in the storm was leading her toward a life she had never imagined. Lucas Whitmore did not believe in coincidence. He believed in timing, numbers, and control. Yet the moment he saw the girl standing alone in the rain, something inside him shifted in a way he could not explain. That he had just left a late meeting at the downtown office. The streets were nearly empty, the city lights blurred by heavy rain. His driver had taken the night off, so Lucas was behind the wheel himself, his mind still half lost in financial reports and expansion plans. Then he saw her. She stood under a broken streetlight, holding the handle of a small suitcase. Her coat was thin, soaked through. She wasn't crying loudly or waving for help. She was simply standing there, as if she had run out of places to go. Lucas slowed the car without thinking. Something about her posture caught his attention. She looked fragile, but not weak. Hurt, but not defeated. He had seen many faces in his life: business rivals, investors, employees asking for promotions, but this was different. There was dignity in her silence. He parked along the curb. For a second, he considered driving away. Getting involved in strangers' lives was messy. He had built his world carefully, avoiding unnecessary complications. But when lightning flashed across the sky, illuminating her face, he saw the exhaustion in her eyes. He stepped out of the car, rain instantly soaking his suit jacket. "Miss," he called gently. She turned, startled. Her eyes were red, but her chin lifted as if preparing to defend herself. "Are you all right?" he asked. She hesitated before nodding. "I'm fine." It was automatic. He recognized that tone. He used it himself during interviews when investors doubted his company in the early years. "You don't look fine," he said quietly. For a moment, she seemed ready to argue. Then her shoulders relaxed just slightly. "It's just been a long night." Lucas glanced at the suitcase. "Do you have somewhere to go?" Silence. The answer was clear. He was not used to feeling uncertain, but he chose honesty. "I don't usually do this. But I own an apartment building a few blocks from here. There's an empty unit. You can stay there until you figure things out." Her eyes widened with caution. "Why?" He appreciated the question. It meant she was not careless. Because you shouldn't be out here alone in this weather. She studied him carefully. Tall, composed, clearly well off. He did not look dangerous, but she had trusted people before and paid for it. My name is Lucas Whitmore, he added. Recognition flickered in her expression. Whitmore Enterprises was not a small company. His name appeared in business magazines often enough, that recognition seemed to ease some of her fear. I'm Alina, she said softly. Alina, he repeated, as if testing the sound of it. Another crack of thunder filled the sky. Please, he said. At least come out of the rain. After a long pause, she nodded. The apartment building was modern but quiet. Lucas led her upstairs himself, unlocking a door at the end of the hall. The unit was simple but elegant, neutral walls, clean furniture, large windows overlooking the city. You can stay as long as you need, he said. No rent for now. Her fingers tightened around the suitcase handle. I don't want charity. It's not charity, he replied. Consider it an investment in kindness. She almost smiled at that. He showed her where the towels were, where to adjust the heating. He kept his distance, careful not to overwhelm her. Before leaving, he paused at the door. You don't owe me an explanation, he said. But if you need help, ask. When he left, Alina locked the door behind him and leaned against it. The apartment was warm, safe, quiet. And suddenly the strength she had forced herself to hold shattered. She slid down to the floor and cried, not just for the accusation, but for the years of trying to belong somewhere that never truly wanted her. Meanwhile, Lucas sat in his car downstairs longer than necessary. He told himself he had only acted out of decency. Anyone would have helped, but he knew that wasn't true. The next morning, he asked his assistant to gather information discreetly. Not to spy, but to understand. He needed to be certain he had not made a mistake. What he found surprised him. Alina Brooks. Top grades at university. Part-time job at a local gallery. No criminal record. No history of trouble. Quiet, hardworking, nothing matched the image of a thief. 2 days later, he knocked on her apartment door again, this time during daylight. She opened it cautiously but seemed calmer. She had washed her hair, and her eyes were clearer. I brought groceries, he said, holding up a bag. You didn't have to, she replied. I know. She stepped aside to let him in. The apartment felt different now, lived in. Her sketchpad lay open on the coffee table, filled with delicate pencil drawings. He glanced at them. You draw, he asked. Yes. It helps me think. He studied one sketch of a city skyline at sunrise. The details were precise, but the light in the drawing felt hopeful. You're talented, he said. A faint blush touched her cheeks. Thank you. They sat across from each other, an awkward silence at first. Then Lucas asked gently, do you want to tell me what happened? Alina stared at her hands before speaking. She did not mention every painful detail. She simply said she had been accused of stealing something she never touched. That her foster family believed her sister's word over hers. Lucas listened without interrupting. He noticed the way her voice tightened when she spoke about trust. The way she kept her emotions controlled, as if afraid they would be used against her. I didn't do it, she finished quietly. I believe you, he said. The words came naturally, her eyes lifted to his, searching for doubt. She found none. That moment changed something between them. Over the next week, Lucas found reasons to stop by. Sometimes with food. Sometimes with updates about job openings. He learned she was studying design and visual arts. There's a junior design position at one of my subsidiaries, he said one evening. You should apply. She frowned. Wouldn't that look suspicious? You'll apply like everyone else, he replied. If you're good enough, you'll earn it. She liked that answer. The interview was arranged through normal channels. Lucas did not sit in on it. He wanted it to be fair. Alina wore her only formal outfit and walked into the office building with nervous determination. She focused on her portfolio, explaining each project clearly. When she received the call offering her the position, she stared at her phone in disbelief. She had earned something on her own. That night, she knocked on Lucas's office door after work to thank him. The CEO's office was large but minimal. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed the city glowing below. You didn't have to help me, she said. He leaned back in his chair. You did the work. She hesitated. Still, thank you. Their conversation slowly shifted from practical to personal. She learned that Lucas had built the company from nothing after his father's failed business left the family in debt. He had trusted the wrong partners once and nearly lost everything. I don't like being wrong about people, he admitted one evening. And you think you're right about me? She asked softly. Yes. The tension between them grew, subtle but undeniable. It was in the way his gaze lingered a second longer than necessary. In the way she felt warmer when he entered a room. Alina had never been close to someone like him, confident, steady, powerful without being loud. Lucas had met many elegant women at events and galas, but none who looked at him without expectation. With Alina, he felt human. One evening, after a long day, they stood on the apartment balcony overlooking the city. The sky was clear, stars faint above the lights. You didn't have to stop that night, she said. I know. Why did you? He considered the question seriously. You look like someone who had been strong for too long. Her breath caught. No one had ever described her that way. A silence settled between them, but it felt different now, full, not empty. Lucas stepped slightly closer. Not touching. Just enough to make the air shift. Alina felt it. The awareness. The pull, but just as something fragile and beautiful began to form between them, the past, which she thought she had escaped, was preparing to return, because somewhere across the city, Vanessa Carter was learning exactly who had helped Alina, and she was not finished yet. The morning everything nearly fell apart again began with a simple phone call. Alina had just arrived at work when her desk phone rang. The receptionist's voice sounded careful. Miss Brooks, Mr. Whitmore would like to see you in his office. Her stomach tightened. Lucas rarely called her during working hours unless it was serious. She smoothed her blouse, trying to ignore the sudden rush of fear that had become familiar since the night she was thrown out. As she walked toward the executive floor, she told herself not to assume the worst. She had done nothing wrong. She had worked hard. She had kept her head down. Still, her palms were cold. When she reached Lucas's office, the door was slightly open. She knocked gently. Come in, Lucas said. His voice was calm, but there was something underneath it. Tension. Alina stepped inside, and froze. Vanessa sat across from his desk. She looked polished, confident, dressed in an expensive cream suit. Her expression was composed, almost bored, as if this meeting were nothing more than a minor inconvenience. For a second, Alina could not breathe. Alina, Lucas said quietly, gesturing for her to sit. She moved forward slowly, refusing to look at Vanessa. I didn't expect to see you here, Vanessa said smoothly. But then again, you always did have a talent for appearing where you're not supposed to be. Alina's fingers tightened around the edge of the chair. What do you want? Vanessa placed a folder on Lucas's desk and slid it forward. I want him to see the truth. Lucas opened the folder without speaking. Inside were printed bank statements. Transfers. Large amounts of money. Alina leaned forward, confused. Then her heart dropped. The statements showed funds transferred from Mr. Carter's personal account into an account under her name. I don't understand, she whispered. Vanessa folded her hands neatly. The money that went missing from our house? It was sent to you. Directly. Alina's head shook immediately. No. I never received that money. It's right there, Vanessa said, her voice calm but sharp. Lucas remained silent, studying the documents. Alina turned to him, panic rising in her chest. Lucas, I swear, I didn't take anything. I've never even seen those transactions. Vanessa let out a soft laugh. She's very convincing, isn't she? The room felt smaller. The air heavier. It was happening again. The same pattern. The same accusations. The same doubt creeping into people's eyes. Alina's throat burned. Why are you doing this? Vanessa's smile faded. Because you never knew your place. Lucas finally closed the folder. His expression gave nothing away. Miss Carter, he said evenly, when were these transfers made? 2 weeks ago, Vanessa replied. Right before she left. Lucas nodded slowly. Alina's mind raced. 2 weeks ago she had still been living in the Carter house. She had no access to Mr. Carter's bank details. She barely knew how online transfers worked. I don't have access to his accounts, she said desperately. I wouldn't even know how to log in. Vanessa tilted her head. You lived in our house for years. You had plenty of opportunity. Alina turned to Lucas again. The fear in her eyes was no longer just about losing a job. It was about losing the one person who had believed her without hesitation. Please, she said softly. Look at me. Do you think I would do that? For a long moment, Lucas did not answer. The silence was unbearable. Then he spoke calmly. I already looked into these transactions. Vanessa's confident posture shifted slightly. Lucas turned his laptop toward them. These transfers were made from an IP address registered to your personal laptop, Miss Carter. Vanessa's face lost color. Alina blinked in confusion. What? Lucas continued, his voice steady and controlled. Our cybersecurity team traced the digital signature. The money never actually reached Alina's account. The transfer was initiated but cancelled within seconds. A screenshot was captured to make it look real. Vanessa stood up abruptly. That's ridiculous. Lucas's gaze hardened. What is ridiculous is attempting to manipulate financial evidence to damage someone's reputation. Alina stared at Vanessa, shock mixing with hurt. You faked it? Vanessa's composure cracked. She doesn't belong here, she snapped. She never did. She took everything. I took nothing from you, Alina replied, her voice shaking but firm. I only tried to exist. Vanessa's anger flared. You stole their attention. Their sympathy. You made me look cruel just by being there. The words hung in the air. Lucas stood slowly. His presence filled the room without raising his voice. This meeting is over. Vanessa looked at him, desperate now. You're choosing her over us? I'm choosing the truth, he said. Security was called. Vanessa was escorted out, her protests echoing down the hallway. When the door finally closed, the silence felt different than before. Not heavy with suspicion, but with relief. Alina's knees felt weak. She gripped the back of the chair to steady herself. Lucas walked around the desk and stopped in front of her. Are you all right? The question broke the thin wall she had built around her emotions. Tears filled her eyes, not from shame, but from release. You believed me, she whispered. I told you I would. She searched his face for doubt and found none. I didn't even know you were investigating, she said. I didn't want to accuse without facts, he replied. You deserve better than that. The words hit deeper than he intended. For years, Alina had accepted less. Less affection. Less trust. Less protection. Hearing someone say she deserved better felt unfamiliar, almost overwhelming. I'm tired of defending myself, she admitted. You don't have to anymore, Lucas said quietly. The way he said it carried weight. A promise, not just comfort. Days passed, and the situation unfolded quickly. Lucas's legal team contacted the Carters with the evidence. Faced with digital proof, Mr. Carter could no longer deny what had happened. Vanessa had staged the entire thing, both the bracelet and the fake transfers, driven by jealousy she had nurtured for years. For the first time, the truth was not buried. Mr. Carter requested a meeting with Alina. She hesitated before agreeing. Not because she wanted closure, but because she needed it. They met in a quiet cafe. Mr. Carter looked older than she remembered. Smaller. I failed you, he said without preface. Alina listened silently. I should have investigated properly. I should have protected you. She had imagined this apology many times during sleepless nights. Yet now that it was happening, it did not feel as powerful as she once thought it would. You chose her, she said simply. He lowered his head. I chose what was easier. The honesty hurt, but it also freed her. I don't hate you, she said after a pause. But I can't come back. I understand. And she meant it. For the first time, she truly did. When she left the cafe, she felt lighter. Not because the past had changed, but because it no longer controlled her. That evening, Lucas waited for her on the balcony of the apartment. The city lights shimmered below, soft and golden. Well, he asked gently. It's done, she replied. He studied her face. There was sadness there, but also strength. You're not going back, he said. No, she answered. I'm moving forward. He stepped closer, close enough that she could feel the warmth of him without being touched. You've built something here, he said. Your career. Your independence. And you, she added quietly. The admission hung between them. Lucas lifted his hand slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. His fingers brushed hers, then intertwined gently. I don't want to rescue you, he said. I want to stand beside you. Her heart swelled at the difference. I don't need saving anymore, she replied. I know. That was why it worked. Their relationship did not explode into dramatic declarations. It deepened naturally. Shared dinners turned into quiet laughter. Long workdays ended with soft conversations. The attraction they once held back now felt steady and mutual. Months later, Alina's design project was featured in a major campaign for the company. Her name appeared in press releases. She earned recognition not because of Lucas, but because of her talent. At the launch event, cameras flashed as she stood beside him. Reporters asked questions. She answered with calm confidence. Vanessa's shadow no longer followed her. Later that night, when the crowd thinned and the music softened, Lucas pulled her aside. You've come a long way, he said. So have you, she replied. He smiled slightly. I was successful before. But I wasn't happy. She felt the truth in his voice, and now, she asked. He looked at her as if the answer were obvious. Now I am. The girl who once stood alone in the rain with a suitcase had become a woman who chose her own future. She had lost a family that never fully accepted her, but she gained something stronger: trust, respect, love built on truth. And as Lucas wrapped his arm gently around her waist, Alina realized something simple and powerful. Sometimes fate does not rescue you. It waits until you are brave enough to walk away from what was breaking you, and then it meets you halfway. After months of rebuilding her life, Alina finally felt the weight of the past lifting. Her career was thriving, her designs recognized, and every day she grew more confident in her independence. Lucas remained by her side, not as a savior, but as a partner, his quiet strength matching her resilience. They shared small routines: morning coffee on the balcony, brainstorming sessions at the studio, evening walks through the city lights, each moment deepening their connection. Vanessa's attempts to tarnish Alina's reputation had faded into the past, replaced by public apologies and quiet regret from the Carters. Alina no longer needed validation from anyone who had once doubted her. Every scar from betrayal now reminded her of how far she had come, how fiercely she could protect her heart and her dreams. One rainy evening, standing together under a shared umbrella, Lucas smiled and said, "You belong here, not just with me, but in this life you've built." Alina looked up at him, the rain washing away old fears, and realized that losing everything had led her to something far greater: trust, love, and a life truly her own. She squeezed his hand, ready for whatever came next, knowing she was finally home.